Hi everyone, my name is Lasya, and today I'll be presenting my final project for BUS137, Principles of Management. And I chose this chapter 12, Leading with Influence, because out of everything we covered this semester, leadership is the one topic that I felt connected to the most, especially given my career path of pursuing a legal career. So, what is this chapter actually about? So, at its core, chapter 12 is about how leaders influence others to achieve goals. A manager operates within a top down structure. They have this authority because of their title. A leader, on the other hand, inspires people in all directions, not just below them. Leadership flows sideways, upward, in almost all directions. This chapter also emphasizes that trust is important in terms of workplace interactions. And then in the chapter, this introduces four major theories. These four theories are described below as trait, behavioral, situational, and contemporary. The trait theory asks, are leaders just born that way? It focuses on personality and physical characteristics. Behavioral theory shifts the focus from who a leader is to what they do. And this looks at three different leadership styles. Situational theory says that whether these traits nor behaviors are alone enough, the context matters. A good leader here adjusts their approach by depending on the person and their situation they're in. And then the contemporary theory, the last one, brings us into the modern era, which it concludes of three different leadership styles of its own, including transformational, servant, and authentic leadership. These are the frameworks that are being used in today's local organizations and global. Okay, so let's start with trait theory. The basic idea here is that certain people are just naturally born with these qualities that makes them a good leader. These things can include confidence and drive. But the main catch here is that researchers began mapping out these qualities. The thing was, everyone isn't the same. People lead with different qualities. That's what makes them special. And that one specific thing that I really found interesting from this chapter is the idea that introverts can absolutely be effective leaders, especially when the people around them are protective, proactive, and self motivated. We often picture leaders as like loud, outgoing, and taking charge personalities, but that's not always the case, because then again, not everyone leads the same way. You don't have to be born a leader to lead effectively. Skills can be developed, and self awareness can be built. Empathy can be practiced. Moving on, behavioral theory. This is the one that shifts the question from who you are to what you do. Researchers had identified three different leadership titles. The first is autocratic, where the leader makes all the decisions and doesn't really ask you for an input, and expects that people to follow. This can be effective in a crisis where you need fast decisions, but can really crush creativity and morale over time. Then we have the democratic one, where a leader involves the team in decision making. People are heard and engagement rates are higher. This is generally seen as the most effective style for long term productivity. And then, of course, we have the laissez faire style, which is completely hands off. This really only works when you have a prepared and highly skilled, self motivated group of people. These people don't really need all the instructions from a leader and basically are capable of doing it on their own, or otherwise, this can sometimes lead to confusion. Now, at the bottom of this slide, this shows a leadership grid, which is a specific tool developed by two researchers. This maps the leadership on two different axes, on how much a leader cares versus how much they care about protection or results. The grid identifies five different styles. On the far left, you have the impoverished management, low on both, basically doing the bare minimum. And then you have authority compliance, all task, no people. Compromise is in the middle, average of both. And the country club is that all people, no results. That is the ideal place. Team management is also the highest concern for both people and the results. That is the highest part that a leader can achieve, and this should be the clear definition of a usual leader. Now we have situational leadership, and the whole promise here is that there's really no single best leading style. You have to adopt based on the maturity and skill level of the person you are leading. And there are four leaders on this model. Telling is someone who's brand new, low maturity, and low confidence. You give clear and direct instructions. Selling is for someone who's willing but still developing. You can coach them and explain the why. And then the participating level is when someone is capable and might need that confidence boost. You will need to support them and share those ideas. And finally is the delegating style, where you can hand off full responsibility and trust your employees to just work with it. The real world example here is that this is actually brought to life by the company Apple. Here you can picture a senior software engineer with 10 years of experience working on an iOS development. Their manager isn't telling them step by step what to do every single day. They're just delegating. But when you have a brand new retail employee on the sales floor that just started last week, the manager would need to adopt to the telling style, giving it specific guidance and working them through product features. Now we get into the modern era of leadership thinking. Transformational leadership is about inspiring that change. A transformational leader doesn't just manage the work, they manage the people beyond their self interest toward a bigger, shared vision that ultimately cultivates growth and ideas. One of this is called servant leadership, and this is the exact opposite. Instead of the leader being at the top, the leader puts themselves at the bottom in the service of the people. This idea here is that leaders are best succeeded by helping those around them to succeed first. The authentic leadership is about being genuinely you. People are really good at detecting when someone's being fake. Authentic leaders build around transparency. You don't have to be perfect, you just have to be real. And then finally, we have the LMX theory, a leader member exchange. This says that leaders naturally develop different kinds of relationships with each person on their team. Good leaders are aware of this dynamic to make sure everyone is included. I also want to be transparent about two things the project asked us to address. In terms of course announcements, I tried to stay engaged throughout the semester. One moment that really stood out to me was when the professor asked the students to share their favorite video game not too long ago. I responded with Fortnite. It really sounds simple, but I actually found out that these kind of announcements are really effective for building a sense of community in an online class. And as for the course evaluation email, I'll be honest, I was on an overnight student trip that week and I wasn't able to get it in time. I do wish I had responded because feedback really matters. And also, when it comes to AI, I used it as a tool throughout this course, specifically for brainstorming and building planning sheets before I actually wrote my written assignments. When topics were challenging and vague, especially the prompts in those writing assignments, I would use AI to explain them to me like I was 5 years old. That would be the exact same prompt. And this would make me understand the concept before writing to understand it in my own words. So, this chapter genuinely had an impact on me as a person, and I think this is mainly because it connected directly to where I'm headed in the future. So, I'm pursuing a career in entertainment law, and most people really think about law and contracts and courtrooms and legal arguments. But what this chapter helped me realize is that there's so much more to becoming that successful attorney, especially in the entertainment sector, where it comes down to leadership skills. Because here, it really shows how you influence people, how you negotiate, and most importantly, how you build that trust. As a future attorney, my job isn't to govern my clients, it's to lift them up. My clients are artists, creatives, musicians, and even producers. If I put their goals first, that's what defines my successful representation. And trust is what the client has to be willing to tell me. They have to tell me everything, the good and the bad. It's about being that individual your client can actually rely on, not just as a person, but as a professional. And finally, here are my resources. Thank you for watching. I really enjoyed putting this together, and thank you for a wonderful semester, Professor.